Okay, when we last left off, our friends Migriso and Roscuro were plotting a kind of evil plan. Migriso, remember, isn't the smartest girl in the world, so Roscuro kind of tricked her. Migriso thinks that they are going to go up to the princess's bedroom, take her, and convince her to switch places. So Migriso will become the Princess P, and the Princess P will become Migriso. So Mig can be a princess, and the princess will become a serving girl. But that's just what Roscuro told her. Roscuro's real plan, as we read last time, was he intended to take the princess to the deepest, darkest part of the dungeon. He intended to have Meg put chains on the princess's hands and on her feet, and he intended to keep the glittering, glowing, laughing princess there in the dark forever. So really, what he's planning to do is have Meg kind of capture the princess, put her in the dungeon, chain her up, and then Roscuro can keep her down there forever because to him, she's full of light and he wants that light. Remember, he loves it so much. So he's one, getting his revenge on her because he's going to lock her in the dungeon. But two, he's going to keep her there so that way that she can always be the light for him. So that's where we left off. Now we're on chapter 37 and it's called A Small Taste. And remember, this whole time, poor little Despereaux just got his tail chopped off and he's sleeping in a bag of flour in the pantry. She was asleep dreaming of her mother, the queen, who was holding out a spoon to her and saying, "Taste this, my sweet pea, taste this, my darling, and tell me what you think." The princess leaned forward and sipped some soup from the spoon that her mother held out to her. "Oh, Mama," she said, "it's wonderful. It's the best soup I've ever eaten." "Yes," said the queen, "it is wonderful, isn't it?" "May I have some more?" said the pea. "I gave you a small taste so you would not forget," said her mother. "I gave you a small taste so you would remember." But as soon as the princess said this, her mother was gone. She disappeared in the bowl of soup and the soup spoon disappeared along with her. "Lost things," said the pea, "more lost things." And then she heard her name. She turned back happy, thinking that her mother had really come back. But the voice wasn't her mother's. The voice belonged to somebody else, and it was coming from someplace far away, and it was telling her to wake up, wake up. The pea opened her eyes and saw Migriso standing over her with a knife in one hand and a candle in the other. "Mig," she said softly. "Gore," said Mig softly. "Say it," commanded Roscuro. Meg closed her eyes and shouted her piece. "If you does not want to get hurt, princess, you must come with me." "Whatever for?" said the princess in an annoyed tone. As I have noted before, the princess was not a person who was used to being told what to do. "What are you talking about?" Meg opened her eyes and shouted, "You got to come with me. So after we take some lessons, you some long lessons and me some short ones, together way down in the deep downs, so I can be you and you can be me." "No," shouted Roscuro from Meg's pocket. "No, no, no, you're doing it wrong." "Who said that?" "Your Highness," said Roscuro, and he crawled out of Meg's pocket and made his way up her shoulder and situated himself there, laying his tail across her neck to balance himself. "Your Highness," he said again, and he raised the spoon slowly off his head and smiled, displaying his mouth of truly hideous teeth. "I think it would be best if you do as Migriso suggests. She is, as you can quite clearly see, in possession of a large, large knife, and she will, if pushed, use it." "This is ridiculous," the princess said. "You can't threaten me. I'm a princess." "We," said Roscuro, "are all too aware of the fact that you are a princess. A knife, however, cares nothing for the fact that you are royalty, and you will bleed, I assume, just like any other human." The pea looked at Meg. Meg smiled. The knife glinted in the light of the candle. "Meg," she said, with her voice shaking the tiniest bit. "I really do not think," said Roscuro, "that Meg would need much persuasion to use that knife, princess. She is a dangerous individual, easily led." "But we're friends," said the pea. "Aren't we, Meg?" "Eh?" said Meg. "Trust me," said Roscuro, "you are not friends. And I think it would be best if you addressed all your communications to me, princess, because I am the one in charge here. Look at me." The pea looked directly right at the rat and at the spoon on his head. Her heart skipped one beat and then two. "Do you know me, princess?" "No," she said, lowering her head. "I don't know you." But reader, she did know him. He was the rat who had fallen in her mother's soup, and he was wearing her dead mother's spoon on his head. The princess kept her head down. She concentrated on containing the rage that was leaping up inside of her. All right, so here is what we got going on. We have the princess in her bed, Miguel with the knife and the candle, and there is Roscuro with his spoon on his head. Look again, princess, or can you not bear to look at me? Does it pain your royal sensibilities to let your eyes rest on a rat? I don't know you, she said, and I'm not afraid to look at you. The pea raised her head slowly. Her eyes were defiant. She stared at the rat. Very well, said Roscuro. Have it your way. You do not know me. Nonetheless, you must do as I say. My friend here has a knife. So get out of bed, princess. We're going on a little journey. I would like you to get dressed in your loveliest gown, the one that you were wearing at that banquet not so long ago. And put on your crown, said Meg. Put that crown on your princess' head. Yes, said Roscuro. Please, princess, do not forget your crown. The pea, still staring at Roscuro, pushed the covers back and got out of bed. Move quickly, said Roscuro. We must take our little journey while it's still dark and while the rest of the castle sleeps on ignorant, oh so ignorant, I'm afraid, of your fate. The princess took a gown from her closet. Yes, said Roscuro to himself. That's the one, the very one. Look how it sparkles in the light. Lovely. I will need someone to help me do my buttons, said the princess as she stepped into the dress. Meg, you must help me. Little princess, said Roscuro, do you think that you can outsmart a rat? Our dear Miguel will not lay down her knife, not even for a moment, will you, Miguel? Because that might ruin your chances of becoming a princess. Isn't that right? Gore, said Meg, that's right. And so, while Meg held the knife pointed in the direction of the princess, the pea sat and let the rat crawl over her back, doing her buttons up for her one by one. The princess held very still. The only movement she allowed herself was this. She licked her lips over and over again because she thought that she could taste in there the sweet saltiness of the spoon that her mother had fed her in her dream. I have not forgotten, Mama, she whispered. I have not forgotten you. I have not forgotten soup. Chapter 38, To the Dungeon. The strange threesome made their way down the golden stairs of the castle. The princess and Meg walked side by side, and Roscuro hid himself again in the pocket of Meg's apron. And Meg pointed the sharp tip of the knife at the princess's back, and together they went down, down, down. The princess was led to her fate, as around her everyone slept. The king in his giant bed with his crown on his head and his hands crossed on his dress, dreaming that his wife, the queen, was a bird with green and gold feathers who called his name, Philip, 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 without ceasing. The cook slept too, in a too-small bed off the kitchen, dreaming of a recipe for soup that she could not find. Where did I put that? She mumbled in her sleep. Where did the recipe go? It was for the queen's favorite soup. I must find it. And not far from cook, in the pantry, on top of a bag of flour, slept the mouse Despereaux, dreaming, as you know, reader, of a knight in shining armor, of darkness and of light. And in the whole of the darkened sleeping castle, there was only one light, the light of the candle in the hand of Miguel. The candle shone on the princess's dress and made it sparkle, and the princess walked tall in the light and tried not to be afraid. In this story, reader, we have talked about the heart of the mouse, and the heart of the rat, and the heart of the servant girl Miguel, but we have not talked about the heart of the princess. Like most hearts, it was complicated, shaded with dark and dappled with light. The dark things in the princess's heart were these: a very small, very hot, burning coal of hatred for the rat who was responsible for her mother's death. And the other darkness was a tremendous sorrow, a deep sadness that her mother was dead and that the princess could now, only in her dreams, talk to her mother. And what of the light in Princess's heart? Reader, I am pleased to tell you that the pea was a kind person, and perhaps more important, she was empathetic. Do you know what it means to be empathetic? I will tell you. It means that when you are being forcibly taken to a dungeon, when you have a large knife pointed at your back, when you are trying to be brave, you are able still to think for a moment of the person who is holding that knife. You are able to think, oh, poor Meg, she wants to be a princess so badly that she thinks that this is the way. Poor, poor Meg, what it must be like to want something that desperately. That, reader, is empathy. And now you have a small map of the princess's heart: hatred, sorrow, kindness, and empathy. The heart that she carried inside of her as she went down the golden stairs and through the kitchen, and finally, just as the sky outside of the castle began to lighten, down into the dark of the dungeon with the rat and the serving girl.